coup to a war in Ukraine. At Narrative, we've been telling you the truth about Putin and Xi since 2016. Narrative, it's where truth lives. And hello, everybody. Welcome to a Thursday night special edition of Narrative Live. It's good to be with you as we talk about crypto and a bunch of other things. You like that opening, I think, Eric. I think you get a thing out of that. You know,
inspiring.
It is inspiring. It is inspiring. You know, in the story of the ooh, sorry about that. It's my earrings. If in the story of how the people overcame tyranny, cryptocurrency will be a big chapter in that. I predict. And that's why we have Kaz Piansi here tonight. And Kaz is a journalist at the Protos, and also at the co-host of the Crypto Critics Corner. Now, as the name implies, he's not necessarily a full-on endorser of everything crypto. It is the Crypto Critics Corner. So he has some things to share with us about things that might be, not so great about crypto, or I don't know. We'll find out what he has to say. How are you, Kaz? It's good to have you on the show.
I'm doing good. Thank you both for having me. I suppose I'm doing a little bit better than some others in the space right now, simply because it's been a bit of a cluster F, I guess I'll say. It's been a mess out there.
It has been a mess out there. Spare a thought for this guy. Where is he? I'm just find. This guy lost about.
We're F-bomb compliant. This is.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
This is straight to Twitter, just so you know.
I don't know what happened there. There we go. It says, it's just, sometimes I press the auto switch button, it does its own switching by itself, and it gets things wrong. So there you are. We're back now. Sorry, you were going to tell us a little bit about how bad a day it's been for a lot of people. So tell us a little bit about why there's been so much rocking the cryptocurrency world in the last 48 hours.
Well, it's been several days, so it hasn't been 24 hours necessarily. It's been several days, months. If you look a little bit further than that, things have been on a general downtrend, much like our normal traditional markets. Things have been on a downtrend overall in cryptocurrency, I would say. But what's been particularly ugly is that there is something called a stable coin, which is a coin supposed to be pegged one-to-one to another asset, in this case, the US dollar. It was a rather large stable coin with 18 billion in value locked up, and it has essentially gone to zero. So there's obviously going to be, it isn't at zero. I think it's trading at around 50 cents right now, 40 cents. But it's looking bad. And the concerns are there's going to be kind of wider contagion for the ecosystem because of it.
Yeah, I think maybe $1 trillion of value has been wiped out in just the last few days. Check out this guy who's KSI Crypto. He says my $2.8 million is literally worth $1,000. Does a lot, and then he says, "Yeah, I'm packing this in." So that's a big loss if you're an investor in something. I mean, no one wants to lose any amount of money, but $2.8 million would hurt.
2.799.
Oh, yeah,
million.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So it has been a bad day, and it really is a bad omen for the entire crypto market. The Bitcoin itself is trading at remarkable lows today. Lows we haven't seen since 2020, as far as I can tell. And it doesn't look necessarily very good because another one of these stable coins, Tether, is also looks like it's collapsing, or maybe on the verge of collapsing. So that isn't very good news, is it?
It's been wild. It's been wacky. I wouldn't say that Tether is necessary. I've been here for long enough to know that just because that particular stablecoin goes a few cents off of its peg, it is not the end of the world for Tether.
Okay.
As much as I'm a critic and would maybe cross my fingers and think that that might be the right thing to happen, I don't think that is reality, at least right now. But yes, I think there are contagion fears in regard to the price of Bitcoin as well, and what that could mean for, Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy that have a large portion of their portfolios in Bitcoin. What that could mean for other companies and stuff that's publicly listed that is heavily invested in Bitcoin. I think that we there certainly could be more capitulation and more pain for sure.
We're going to talk a lot more about this because there's so much interesting questions, and there is very much fallout for the entire economy as we look ahead to the elections, which will be an inflation and economy elections again. And that's why all of this really matters for the people in the political world, even if you don't own any Bitcoin, but it will have contagion certainly across the entire economic sphere. And just so everyone's up to speed here, the current value of Bitcoin, this is a couple of hours old, but it's $28,776 US, which is about where it was, if you look at this graph, about 5 years ago. No, about 1 year ago, 2 years ago. Anyhow, we'll get back to all of that with Kaz, who knows much more about all of this a little later on. But right now, Eric and I are going to do some other stuff, and Kaz will be back with us in just a few minutes. It's also been a big day at the January 6th committee, hasn't it? Today, they've been handing out subpoenas, not to your typical crowd. This time, it's friends and colleagues that are being asked to come and testify.
Yep. McCarthy, Gosar, our man Jim Jordan, Andy Biggs, was he in the list?
Andy Biggs was. I don't think Gosar actually was. I think he's previously had his own legal challenges.
Okay.
I don't think he got included in this batch, although I'm sure he sends his regrets. This is not a particularly good look for the GOP because, they actually work as their jobs, their day jobs is to work in the House. As
they required a
representatives.
subpoena
Yeah.
at a place they already work.
Yeah. It's not a good look. It's not, you really are supposed to follow the rules of your workplace.
I mean, like if you're in if you're at work in your office, right, and you're in the coffee, you're in like a break room, and they're like, we're having a meeting in the conference room, and you work here, so you're invited. It's at 11 o'clock. I mean, if you had to get the U.S. Marshals or some other police force to take you from the coffee break room to the conference center, it would suggest some dysfunction in your organization, right?
Especially when
that's kind of what's happened here. Is like, we'd like to talk to you about the time we had to count the electoral college votes, and they're like, fuck you, you'll never get us. And
it's also that it's all, affected everyone. This is an event that affected every single person who works at the Capitol. So the fact that these people who may have some responsibility for it are not out there, talking about that, it must make the place very tense, especially when you know that they're lying. I mean, that's the other factor, is that they're full on lying.
Well, there is that.
There is that. Yeah. This is the letter, by the way.
Hey guys, remember that time the mob came and tried to murder at least a few of us and overthrow democracy?
Yeah. Did you guys protect it and showed around a few days before?
Look, we can't look backwards. We have to look forwards.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it says here on January the 12th, 2022, the Select Committee delivered you a letter seeking your voluntary cooperation with our investigation. As explained in the letter, which is attached to the subpoena, the Select Committee has tremendous respect for the prerogatives of Congress and the privacy of our members. At some time, we have a solemn responsibility. Okay, you go. You can read that better than I can because
we have a solemn responsibility to investigate fully the facts and circumstances of the violent attack on the United States Capitol and issues relating to the peaceful transfer of power. Mm-hmm. And the Select Committee believes that you have information that is important to its investigation. Unfortunately, you declined voluntary cooperation, and we are left with no choice but to issue you this subpoena.
I mean, that's very nicely worded. It's very respectful, but underneath all of it all is a lot of potentially criminal activity that these people were responsible for. I mean, it's not just that they are not wanting to come and talk to the House. Yeah.
Can I translate that real
Yeah.
quickly?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a
Can you
translation.
put it
You're very
back
good
there?
at that.
This is a translation. Yeah. Let me look at that. Just back the slide up.
Yeah.
Can you back the slide up to the last?
You're sorry. Yeah.
Thanks.
1 second. Here we go. Sorry, sir.
Thank you. Let's see. Pursuant to the authorities, okay, fuckers, here's a subpoena. On January 12th equals, we gave you 4 fucking months.
Yeah.
All right. And you're fucking around. And this is about the time they tried to kill us here and overthrow the government. And you won't go from the break room to the conference room. So here's a subpoena. Fuck you, Benny Thompson.
That's a very, very, very good interpretation of that. Thank you so much for helping us understand. Also, because
English to profanity. It's my chief language pair as an interpreter, which is my first job.
I support that. I support you, and you keeping doing that for everyone, because everyone needs to really understand all these things. I believe if I press this button, and it's not going to work. Okay, well, there you go. I was going to play you Kevin McCarthy's statement from the day after, but I'll play that in a second. I'll find it again for you. Here he is.
Responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding. These facts require immediate action by President Trump. Accept his share of responsibility, quell the brewing unrest, and ensure President-elect Biden is able to successfully begin his term. The president bears responsibility.
Begins his term is obviously the last
Wednesday's
words that's missing there, but it's, boy, I mean, that's pretty clear. He's pretty clear about what he meant that day. And, he's pretty clear in all the audio tapes that we've had since that he really thought it was the president's responsibility at the time. Yet now he's willing to risk a subpoena and actual, criminal action against him by the DOJ because he is that beholden to this man that he feels that he can't in any way go back and tell people the truth. He has to basically break the law for Donald Trump, and he's willing to do it. Boy,
weird.
That is weird. He must have some hold on him. I don't know what it is, but it must go back.
Who knows?
It must go back. Here's the details of what they. Sorry, good.
We should go back at some point and just watch some of the video of that night. Like, I think it's becoming increasingly clear there are a bunch of people who knew that this is going to happen, that there was, and that one way or the other was going to be insane. Either it worked and it'd be insane, or God forbid on the GOP side, it fails and then is even worse insane. And we got to find some video of Lindsey Graham, who's out there and appears to be up in his cups, as the Irish would say. He seems a little bit loose for that time of night. He's like, this is crazy. All this is it's not really articulate at all. And then you get the video of Mitt Romney looking at Josh Hawley like, I mean, there's a lot of information that's still back there. Like they got it done. Mike Pence. I mean, none of us understood. None of us thought that. Or sorry, I'm sure very few people thought that Mike Pence was gonna be the guy on that day who strode back in at the end of the night like Clint Eastwood at the end of Unforgiven when he goes into the bar and you shouldn't have made my best friend a decoration outside. Boom, 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 and and saves
I'm not getting in that car. That was the line.
No, I mean he was pretty. It's not that I don't trust you. I just don't think I'd be coming back.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and does his constitutional duty. And everybody, there's just all this emotion, all these people, all over each other in there. There's so much just in that footage. So and you go back to Kevin here.
Yeah, go ahead. This is by Kevin.
He's on the day of. He's like, yeah, absolutely. It's it's a Democrat witch hunt.
Yeah. The whole thing, by the way, they wanted them just to keep them there so they would postpone the vote for the one day. That's all they wanted. But Nancy Pelosi, of course, knew that they were trying to postpone the vote for one day. So she insisted that they stay in and do. They didn't want to leave in any event because they didn't want to abandon the House, but they knew they had to come back and do that vote that day, not to give the chance for Justice Alito, believe it or not, who was the justice that they thought was going to give them some sort of stay on the election results. The same justice who's now, taking away Roe versus Wade. So that's become quite apparent in the latest reporting.
If they could. What they were trying to do was, if they could just stop Pence from going forth, he wasn't going to overthrow the thing himself.
Mhm.
It would be just chaotic enough for the Insurrection Act if he
Mhm.
didn't have the vote in by midnight.
And then the Supreme Court could jump in.
Well, as we've covered on the show before, there was going to be some Antifa stuff in the
Mhm.
streets, and then people out to shoot us if we were out after curfew, and fake electors were going to come in from Georgia and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and other places, and state houses were going to be occupied by armed paramilitary traitors, but they just needed that one. If you can, the rules say he's got to do it on the 6th. If we can just get him to not do it on the 6th, as soon as we have some chaos, we can throw the Insurrection Act.
So there's some new detail around that, and we'll do it tomorrow, because there's a lot of great interesting things that have developed about why it was so important for that one day. And Justice Alito, and I actually forgot about even mentioning it, and I will do it tomorrow. Some really interesting new detail that someone was floated around on Twitter the other day, and it's important. But let's stick to what happened today. Here's what they say about Kevin McCarthy. He was in communication with President Trump before, during, and after the attack on January the 6th. Mr. McCarthy was also in communication with other members of the White House staff during the attack, and in days before and after January the 6th concerning the events at the Capitol. Mr. McCarthy also claimed to have had discussions with the president in the immediate aftermath of the attack, during which President Trump admitted some culpability for the attack. So, yeah, Kevin's screwed. I mean, he's screwed, because he's the bridge that they need to prove that Donald Trump is he's the kingpin of all of this, and they're going to prove it.
Kingpin.
Meanwhile, Scott Perry over here, who's not had that much focus on him, but he was very much involved in the fraudulent slate of electors. So he says here that Perry was directly involved with efforts to corrupt the Department of Justice and installed Jeffrey Clark as the acting Attorney General. In addition, Mr. Perry had various communications with the White House about a number of matters relevant to the Select Committee's investigation, including allegations that Dominion voting machines had been corrupted, which turned out, of course, not to be true. So he's in trouble too. He looks like he's going to get, these are big allegations that all seem kind of illegal to me. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but they seem illegal to me. Meanwhile, Jim Jordan, you must do a good Jim Jordan, I'm sure. He was in communication with President Trump.
It's kind of bad.
He was in communication with President Trump on January the 6th and participated in meetings and discussions throughout late 2020 and early 2021 about strategies for overturning the 2020 election. Amazing. Only Democrats, of course, only the Democratic results where Democrats won. Mel Brooks spoke at the rally on January the 6th, encouraging rioters to start taking down names and kicking ass. I remember that clip. In addition, Mr. Brooks had publicly described conversations.
That's an incitement to violence.
It seems like that. Kicking ass, that seems like a violent act, in which the former president urged him to work to rescind the election of 2020. That sounds like a direct order, doesn't it? It urged him to rescind the elections of the 2020 elections and reinstall Mr. Trump as president. So that's an important line. The former president urged him.
Install.
Yeah. Sounds like a scheme. Sounds like a RICO going on. The Select Committees also has evidence that Mr. Brooks' staff met with members of Vice President Pence's staff before January the 6th and conveyed the view that the Vice President does not have authority to unilaterally refuse to count certified electoral votes. Interesting. Do you want to do the last one? Do you want to do Mr. Biggs?
Sure. Representative Andy Biggs participated in meetings to plan various aspects of January 6th and was involved with plans to bring protesters to Washington for the counting of electoral college votes. Oh, so he helped organize the violent attack. Okay. Mr. Biggs was involved in efforts to persuade state officials that the 2020 election was stolen. So he's a prime co-conspirator there. In the seditious conspiracy. Additionally, former White House personnel identified Mr. Biggs as potentially being involved in an effort to seek a presidential pardon for activities connected with the former president's efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. When this goes to trial, if these guys won't plead out, will be presented to the jury as consciousness of guilt.
So yeah. these
So,
guys
yeah.
have been corrupt. These guys have been committing crimes, and no wonder they don't want to testify because they realize
These guys are fucking traitors. I mean,
they're
we're getting down to like where the fancy language gets to go away. And I note that I was doing the dramatic reading, and the reason I reduced it to the 4-letter Germanic Anglo terms is we're getting down to y'all try to violent attack to overthrow the government.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
there's no doubt about it.
You're traitors. You're treason.
And once we figure out that we actually been in a war, which we have been for the last few years, then that really is treason, like plain old treason, which you can only really do under war circumstances. But it's true that we have been under some sort of war since 2016. I have so much I want to say about all of this, and I also want to talk about Finland because that's so important. But we're not going to, because we're going to take the commercial break and we're going to talk about the crypto crash because that's so important to today's news and has huge implications for the election. So take a quick break and we'll come back and talk to Kaz PNC again about that. But if you'd like to join our conversation, you could always go to narrative.org/TV. That's narrative.org/TV. For patrons only, you'll be able to use the messenger service over there to get your messages directly to us here on the show. And you can ask Kaz any questions you might have about whatever it is you want related to crypto. You just go to narrative.org/TV and turn on the interactive player over there and ask us your questions. That's for patrons only. We'll be right back with Kaz right after this. Hey everybody, it's Zev Shalev here. It's becoming more and more expensive to buy groceries. And if you, like me, are trying to get all the nutrients and vitamins you need while still balancing your budget, it's become nearly impossible to get all the nutrients you need from food alone, especially on a budget. That's why I did the 30-day Athletic Greens Challenge in April. The plan was simple. Take the AG1 supplement throughout April and track any increases in energy levels, overall well-being, and vitality. And if my immune system felt boosted. I did it throughout April, and I have to say, I feel terrific every day taking it. I still take it every day after the 30-day challenge was over. And the biggest fear that people have about green drinks is the taste. And I have to tell you that even taking it daily, drinking this drink every day, the drink tastes great every time. It's refreshing and tastes a little bit like a tropical drink. AG1 is engineered to provide all the right nutrients at just the right time. Whether you want increased energy or improved muscle recovery, they've got it covered. And because they care about your wallets too, AG1 will only cost you around $3 a day. To make it easy for you, Athletic Greens is also going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/narrative. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/narrative. That's the way we spell narrative, NARATIV, to take ownership of your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And remember to go visit that site if you want all those free goodies attached to your order. That's athleticgreens.com/narrative, NARATIV. And we're back live with Kaz PNC and Eric Garland talking about the crypto crash. Kaz is a journalist at Protos and also the co-host of the Crypto Critics Corner. So Kaz, how serious is this collapse? We talked a little bit at the top of the show, but I mean, in terms of, is Bitcoin going to survive this collapse, or are we seeing the beginning of the end of crypto?
I mean, I would almost, there's you can't be 100% sure about anything, but I would suggest that there's almost no chance that Bitcoin would go to zero. Like it's an almost impossibility. In current market conditions is what I'll say.
Well, it's gone down a lot. Here's that chart we had on before we got to break there. That seems to have this chart does not look good for any investor. No one would be happy to be with where we are right now. And certainly the last what is this, like 2 years? When did the climb start happening?
So this past in 2021 it did go up to roughly 70,000. So you're looking at a decline from about 70,000 to 30,000. So it is a very, very steep decline over a relatively fast period. Actually, if you see where it topped out there, this decline is strong and fast, about it, possibly faster than it even went up. Maybe not. But This has happened before, I guess, is a point that I find to be relatively valid from people who are invested in Bitcoin. If you look at the overall chart forever ago, I think it's gone through 90% corrections 6, 7, 8 times, something like that. I mean, this is not
Quite
new
unusual.
for investors in cryptocurrency. Yeah.
But for this guy we spoke about earlier at the top of the show, Mr. KSI Crypto, it's not good for him because he was invested in this Luna currency. Tell me what the Luna currency is or was.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to differentiate between what's like the majority of the liquidity in cryptocurrency is in two coins, one Bitcoin, which most people are familiar with, and the other Ethereum, which most people are also familiar with. But then there's these other assets. There's a slew of other assets that we don't need to go into all of those. There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of coins that trade daily. But the class of coin that we're talking about today are what you have right there called up stable coins. And there's a lot of stable coins. It's not just Terra, but the one that has collapsed is Terra. And Terra is a specific kind of stablecoin. So if you're familiar with traditional markets, then you know that if you trade on a brokerage account or if you trade at all, then oftentimes what you'll have in your account is not actual dollars, but you'll have some sort of money market fund. You'll have something that represents roughly about $1. There's been issues with money market funds as well, and there's issues with real pegged currencies in the real world regularly. This is something that happens all the time. I think everyone is familiar with the infamous George Soros attack on the British pound, where he essentially won. He beat England down, and he made a lot of money doing it. Now, regardless, stable coins are supposed to maintain the value of some other asset. They're a derivative. There's different kinds of stable coins. There's ones that are pegged to gold, the price of, let's say, an ounce of gold. There's stable coins that are pegged to I don't know, you name the currency and that they might be pegged to it. The most used one, and the one that is the largest, is called Tether. Tether is backed the way essentially, or it has a lot of its own issues that we don't need to get into today. But Tether itself is pegged via similar to like a money market fund, if you believe what they say, which is that they have a basket of assets and roughly try to risk off enough that it maintains roughly about $1. And if you want to trade in your tethers at any point, you can trade them in for $1. That's the claim.
Right.
Terra is a much different stablecoin, is what I just want to say here, is that Terra, which had $18 billion in locked value versus Tether, which has about $80 billion in locked value. Terra was what is called an algorithmic stablecoin. So people in cryptocurrency are kind of trying to invent the perpetual money motion machine here. And what this is that there is one coin that is supposed to be worth $1 or worth let's say, a Korean won at all times. And then there's this other coin that is valuable outside of that ecosystem. And you can always trade X amount of the other coin for Terra. So Terra and Luna, you have the other name up there. So Luna is this coin that is supposed to have free float on the market, but it maintains the peg due to staking mechanisms and all of these other things, that the magic, financial magic, they've come up with financial magic and have essentially made it so that this free floating coin can now stabilize this pegged coin. And simultaneously, they were also offering roughly 20% APR on this. Like if you staked it, if you were using this and were using the ecosystem in the way that it was supposed to be designed, you could earn up to supposedly 20%, right?
Yeah.
Was the claim. But
So they just one last point before Eric, if I can just jump in, just one last thing. Do you think that the idea behind a stable coin was to keep the market stable, right? I mean, it was not designed to destroy the market. Yet here it's it's meant to give people confidence that the stable coin would always be worth at least whatever the value is of the asset they're comparing it to. So yet it's done the exact opposite. It seems to have fundamentally shaken the entire market. It's done everything but keep it stable.
yes, so that's been a long issue with stablecoins in general, because stablecoins are, yes, like they are designed to they're not designed to necessarily stabilize a market. I think what they're designed to do is similar to a US dollar. If you've been invested, let's say in, I don't know, name a random stock, let's say Apple, for a few years, you've made plenty of money on it and it's starting to go down and you decide, I want to get out of this, right? What do you go into? Well, you don't just jump from one stock into another. Usually you sell that stock and go into a US dollar or money market fund, right? So stablecoins are designed similarly in that people who were buying cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, other stuff, wanted a place that they could move money when they felt like the markets were too volatile.
Mm-hmm.
The problem in the cryptocurrency ecosystem as it is that getting money from your bank account to any of these exchanges where you could now trade these cryptocurrencies would often be incredibly difficult because,
banks didn't recognize
these
it.
exchanges have known to have a lot of problems. Let's just say that. So a lot of they have banking issues. They've in the past, not so much these days, but in the past. So stablecoins were designed to create a way that you could move out of a trade without having to move into dollars, where even if you could move those dollars back into the ecosystem, it could maybe take 3 or 4 days to wire that cash to your account, right? So there is a proper, reasonable use case for this in terms of it's a hedge at the speculation table. Right.
Got it. All right, Eric, sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted you earlier.
I got a lot of questions. I mean, principally about what financial magic is. It's a term I'm not familiar with. But you made some comparisons here between stable coins and either the US dollar and, say, market exchange traded funds and like that. Now, do you know what the US dollar is backed by?
Well, I mean, I take no issue with the US dollar. In my mind, I find the US dollar to be quite valuable. Obviously, I use it every day. What is it backed by? It's backed by the US GDP. It's backed by what we produce.
It's backed by the full faith
around here.
It's backed by the full faith and credit. The full faith and credit of the United States government, because it's a nation state that takes on obligations, and so do all the other countries that have currencies. Now, Argentina's promises aren't worth as much, and they have a whole lot more volatility. Britain and Germany's have a lot less volatility because their promises are more reliable. So that's talking about central banks is a whole nother issue. They're certainly not squeaky clean, and there's a lot to discuss. Alexander Hamilton did his best job, right? Mm-hmm. Making the U.S. Treasury, and it stuck around pretty long. I think the guy did a pretty good job. So that's the nation state currency here. And the exchange traded funds, stocks, there's a lot of tomfoolery that goes on with those, but those are companies ostensibly in operation that own assets, that have disclosed those assets and their business operations to the Securities and Exchange Commission, and you get a cut of that. Now, there's a whole, the ultra high frequency trading and, Mercer bullshit, and that there's a lot that departs from rational value. It's not perfect, but at least these are companies that are in operation, and we can go, well, I'm invested in General Motors. They make cars. Or ExxonMobil. They find oil and they dig it out. And, but what is this based on? It's not based on a nation state's backing of its people and its overall industry, and it's not backed by any specific economic activity. So I'm having trouble seeing how the stable coins were ever stable, because I don't know what they're backed by.
Yeah, okay. So it definitely depends on which stablecoin we're talking about here, and which other coin we're talking about. For instance, if you I like the argument regarding Bitcoin and its value, you know, I'm a critic. I still think that there's a lot of interesting and fascinating things to say about Bitcoin. I think that there are use cases and useful reasons for it to exist. Now, if we're talking about stablecoins, um, where is the backing coming from? For instance, for Tether, Tether issues it's not an audit. I want to make sure that everybody understands that very clearly. They promised an audit for a very long time now, and they've never gotten an audit. But what they do is this kind of, I don't know, pie chart kind of, it tells you a basic summary of what their assets are according to them. So this is not like someone's going in there and digging through their assets and telling you, oh, well, this is not exactly accurate, or this whatever. Like, it's just them and what they say to an auditor, and you're trusting that. That's clear. So they're backed by by cash and cash equivalents, treasuries, risk on assets that are riskier than actual US dollars, right?
So they're backed by nation state currencies that are backed by a government.
Yeah, they claim
that one.
They claim that, yeah.
Yes, I mean, exactly. They
what's
claim
their
it doesn't mean that it's true.
So they don't really have a fiduciary responsibility with central banks?
No, as far as I understand, they don't. I mean, there's no regulation of any of these stable coins at all. Which, and that's why there's so much regulatory attraction to these things, because people are claiming, like,
if by attraction you mean prosecution, yeah.
Yes. I mean, why
there's a lot of attraction to it.
People are concerned that there's an understanding around stable coins that they might be, backed up by the U.S. government, and of course they're not. They're not backed up by any government. If you lose your stable coins, you lose your coins.
Well, Tether's out of Hong Kong, actually.
Yeah. So Tether, I went to Hong Kong to try to find Tether. That is a story that I wrote. Tether is not in Hong Kong, I can assure you. They are not anywhere, as far as I know. Bitfinex and Tether do not actually have an office anywhere.
What does that mean? They're not anywhere? What does that mean?
It means that if shit hits the fan, that there's nowhere for you to stand out with a picket sign in front of and complain about it. But
you're definitely not getting your money back. You're definitely not getting your money back.
Definitely not if it goes to zero. But
and you can't find us to come and ask us. Okay.
That's a whole, like I said, whole different set of issues over there. What I was talking about when I referenced financial magic, I can actually find an old tweet from an old friend where they said they had screenshotted exactly how it described itself. And this is how Terra was described. Terra is a price-stable cryptocurrency designed for mass adoption. It builds financial infrastructure for the next generation of decentralized applications. Terra is backed by Luna, a decentralized asset that derives its value from transaction fees collected on the Terra network. Much like the moon stabilizes the Earth's rotation, Luna is Terra's eternal guardian of stability.
Right. Just like the moon.
Yeah.
That's how you get your money back, because the moon stabilizes.
Where we're all going, right?
Yeah.
Straight to the moon. So,
So this is terrible.
Peak euphoria for sure is when this was designed and marketed. And this whole 20% APR thing was suggested as a marketing scheme. I mean, they said as much. They said it wouldn't last forever, that they couldn't promise 20% forever, and that it would eventually go down slowly, and that the goal was to become too big to fail, I think.
Well, how many $1 trillion are there in the crypto market? I mean, there must be certainly more than $1 trillion, I think I've read today. Maybe, it's like a huge
it's
amount
about
of money.
1.2 trillion right now, I believe.
Yeah, $1.2 trillion is coming from somewhere. I mean, that's value that's originating from something originally. It's not just the price up of the price climbing of Bitcoin, although some of it surely is. This is money that's been taken out of the economy, presumably. I mean, what people used to use for dollars, they're now using Bitcoins for, presumably, or other cryptocurrencies. And therefore, some of that money is coming out of the U.S. economy. No, it's not all 1.3 trillion, because so much of it has just been the inflation of these assets. But this is money that would otherwise be in circulation. isn't it? I mean, I'm just asking because I don't know.
Sure. I guess. I mean, there's plenty of VC money sloshing around in dumb seed rounds for other things in traditional finance as well. I mean, I don't think everything in this space is a scam, but do I think that money is too cheap right now, and then you have dumb ideas that are promising impossible yields getting funded by big names? So there were big names invested in this company. I want to iterate that this wasn't just mom and pop, naive folks falling for it. This was huge venture capital firms. People consider, the biggest names in crypto, some of these firms that back them. We're talking
What are the names of
Cacao
those firms?
Ventures, which
Okay.
we're talking Cacao Ventures, which is Cacao is one of the largest companies in Korea. We're talking about tons of Chinese backing. We're talking about I don't know if Binance is one of the biggest
Binance is, yeah.
cryptocurrency exchanges
Binance
in the
is
world.
out of the Caymans and Seychelles, yes,
Yeah.
but
But really out of China, yeah. They're all out of China, all of these companies, really. A lot of them. A lot of these
Not-
giant VC firms that are backing Bitcoin are out of China. I mean, it's true, I think. That's
Maybe, but I think a lot of that has kind of been tamped down. I do think that China's really kind of in the past year, I've heard about OTC desk people, like well-known ones, getting arrested, getting vanished, getting disappeared, and not being heard from again. So I do think that China is clamping down in some sense on cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency trading. That's also like a rumor that comes every year or two in cryptocurrency, and then suddenly it's allowed again. So
yeah. Look, I think
I do an analysis in this space, and I've been working on it for over 10 years. The vast majority of the liquidity here just shot into the market in 2021 when people realized Joe Biden was going to be president, Merrick Garland was going to be head of the Department of Justice, and there was likely to be a very different regulatory environment. Moreover, at the end of 2020, the National Defense Authorization Act went in and said, as part of the national defense, we need to identify the ultimate beneficial owner of every LLC in Delaware, Nevada, other places. We're going to do that with biometrics. We need to bulk up on FinCEN for sanctions violation from Russia and North Korea, and now, of course, Russia and other places with all that intensity. And then, of course, there's threats against that with China as well. It's like almost as soon, and also in the UK was starting to require ultimate beneficial owner disclosure for its offshore or overseas territories, peculiar possessions of the Queen, Jersey, Guernsey, British Virgin Islands. They would have to actually say who owns the account, right? And so hiding your dirty money offshore is going to get a hell of a lot harder. And then all this money rushes into crypto, and a fuck ton of it comes from the countries that are basically mafia states, money launderers, and then some. So it seems like that's got some strategic risk to it for the sector.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I don't think anybody who's in the space would try to deny that there's certain popularity aspects to this in terms of sanctions evasion, let's say, or tax evasion, or
Felonies.
money laundering. Those are certainly very real aspects to the industry. Something to certainly be worried about. And like you said, there's a lot of crackdowns happening. Last week, the British Virgin Islands premier was arrested in Miami for drug charges. So that's, clearly there's major problems with all of this. And of course, every cryptocurrency exchange is incorporated in the Cayman Islands or the British Virgin Islands or the Seychelles or Hong Kong or Switzerland, right? I mean, this is, again, common, open secret. This is a very open secret in the industry. Nobody really cares. But
that is money coming out of the economy. I mean, it's still money it's money that's being taken out of the economy, or it's money that's being laundered from criminal events or the sale of illegal assets or whatever it is. being, laundered through cryptocurrency. Presumably that's the intention, and taken out. I mean, it's
Well,
dumped
the other
in a way.
correlating factor there is Switzerland is now starting to do things like extradite criminals and turn over records that it didn't used to. So all like the Nazi money and the Soviet money and the espionage money and the various cartels, Sinaloa, Jalisco, that place ain't safe anymore. And right around the time that starts happening, there's a lot of interest in crypto. It's correlation, not causation, but still very interesting.
It's interesting today that a high court in China today said that Bitcoin is protected by law and has economic value. Now, I don't think any other court anywhere in the world has declared that, but the High People's Court,
El Salvador,
yeah.
Nayib Bukele.
So, maybe if you live in China, maybe they'll back your currency. I don't know if you have Bitcoin, but if you live in the United States and you're buying Bitcoin, you're not getting your money back if you're in one of these exchanges and it crashes. I mean, you're not going to get it back.
Isn't that what the guy from Coinbase just kind of admitted and then unadmitted?
Yeah.
Like
what is
Coinbase? It was an
Has?
interesting.
Yeah, tell us
it was a very interesting. So I don't know exactly the terms of this. I do know that there's new SEC risk disclosure rules and regulations that they're forcing every company to. Or I don't know if it's every company. I don't know if it's direct listed companies or SPACs also, or I don't know who's included in this risk disclosure form that is necessary to for some companies to do. But Coinbase was clearly one of those companies, and but then shortly thereafter, he did a thread and specifically said we have no risk for bankruptcy, which I've never heard a CEO say. So it seems insane.
Coinbase is a huge company. I think it's one of the biggest exchanges, right? In terms of the place where you can exchange a lot of these different cryptocurrencies with other cryptocurrencies, and they make a lot of money off these fees.
They hold nation state currencies and crypto,
Yeah.
and they just kind of let the cat out of the bag that they're not a bank really, and they're not covered by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which was established after the Great Depression because we had all these financial innovators who were really, what's the technical term? Entirely full of shit and fucking criminals. And so, and then people starved after that. There were runs on banks because of that fraud.
Yeah.
And there was famine in the Appalachians. There was a great week, and it caught fire in other nations and led to another round of world war. So we established these regulations, which apparently some people just want to throw entirely in the trash and think it's going to be okay. But I don't know. They're not having the FDIC thing stamped on the front of the business that goes, even if this group of financiers, like I bank at a credit union, you walk in, if these guys who are running it, and the ones that I work with are totally charming, and it's not high stakes, there's no 20% APR there. But if they go out of business because they fuck it up, the feds will come in and hand me my money back. Mm-hmm. And that's,
so I do want to
so much prosperity.
I do want to specifically say that as far as I know, and things may have changed, but as far as I know, on Coinbase, your cash, if you have cash in US dollars, it is FDIC insured, as far as I know. They also have always explicitly stated that if they were to suffer some sort of, I think, hack or whatever, if things were going to go wrong on the exchange, you didn't necessarily have recourse unless it was arbitration. I mean, I think those were rules that have always been on the books. I think the risk disclosure here that was different, that got everybody freaked out, was the idea that if Coinbase went bankrupt, any cryptocurrencies that you hold on the exchange would be used by Coinbase to pay out people that they owed money to at that point.
Wow. Sounds like a scheme. Sounds like a scam. I mean, it just does.
So yeah,
Well,
so that would make, I mean, I read the technical language, and I know this from working in the bond space and stocks and others. And they're unsecured creditors, so they're not in line with the employees and the other people that had actual dealings with the company, which is considered, extraordinarily risky. Here's what it says on Coinbase's website. To the extent U.S. customer funds are held as cash, they are maintained in pooled custodial accounts at one or more banks insured by the FDIC. Our custodial accounts have been established in a manner to make available pass-through FDIC insurance up per depositor coverage limit then in place, currently $250,000 per individual, which is the same as FDIC. FDIC pass-through insurance products protect funds held on behalf of a Coinbase customer against the risk of loss should any FDIC insured banks where we maintain custodial accounts fail. And FDIC insurance coverage is contingent upon Coinbase maintaining accurate records and on determinations of the FDIC as receiver at the time of a receivership, a bank holding a custodial account. So Coinbase has got behind them some banks where they hold your money. And if those banks go out of business, then FDIC will come in, but contingent on making sure that Coinbase's records are correct.
Right.
So it's better than being an unsecured debtor, getting in line in a bankruptcy. But I guess I have to ask, what's their record keeping like? And he's now telling us that bankruptcy for his company is an impossibility. So I wonder what other fantastical thinking he has about generally accepted accounting principles.
I love it when CEOs can claim the impossible. Can I throw out a scenario here before Kaz? Go ahead. Just go ahead and respond.
No, please.
Okay, so I mean, we're heading into an election now where inflation surely is going to be the big factor. We know that inflation is being pumped up by war, because of that is increasing the food prices, and by gas prices increases, which is also being pumped up because of the war. So we've got two foreign events that are perhaps driving up inflation in the United States as we head into election. Now, say you were also a foreign state that had a lot of interest in a certain currency sector or economic sector like cryptocurrency, and say you had an interest in electing a certain president in, maybe not this coming election, but the election after that. I mean, it sort of would be a great thing to have a lever in the US economy where you could crash a currency just before an election. Maybe it'll crash the rest of the cryptocurrency, or at least hurt it before an election. That might drag down the overall market, so it creates economic turmoil just before an election. And you add that to inflation, and boy, you might have, a huge weight that you could have on the election as to who might get elected. And, who would that favor in this scenario? Well, there's only one party that would only favor the GOP. It would not favor the Democrats. So I'm not suggesting that China or anybody else might be involved in a scheme like that, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that someone might want to do that if they were that kind of nefarious minds.
I think that nation states are likely, they're probably interested in cryptocurrencies. I mean, I think it would be hard to suggest otherwise, right? I mean, it is a new monetary tool. It is a new way to move money, and you can use that for any assortment of things. And so I would think that trying to consider it for use as an attack vector would be something that nation states would definitely think about. It just would make sense that they would consider it. How realistic do I think that is in terms of, I don't think cryptocurrency markets would be the way to affect, like if you're a nation state actor, if you want to piss off Americans, there's probably much better ways to mess with inflation, like gas. They've
done that. They're doing that too. They're doing gas and food prices, but they also could do
lying about meat shortages. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so they could just add on top of that. They can add this as well. If you really wanted to have an impact, like if you really wanted to hurt the American economy, those would be three things I would do. I mean, honestly, if I was just thinking in this really malign point, perspective, I think, I'm going to crash the U.S. economy. I might do those three things. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that some previous collapses in the U.S. economy have also been triggered by foreign countries. I mean, that's also considered, quite plausible.
Maybe I can, if it's not overstepping my bounds, maybe I could ask a reverse question to both of you, which is that I believe in government. I believe in regulation, and to me, as somebody who's followed the space for a very long time and been in the crypto a long time, about half as long as people who've actually been here for a long time. But I wonder to myself why, if the U.S. regulators could shut down Tether tomorrow, or shut down Terra or any of these other cryptocurrencies that they want to stop or use as an attack vector or something, why would they have not done it by now?
That's a good question. I've thought a lot about it. I've examined the prosecutions that have gone forth, which are increasing in number rather rapidly. I've looked at the legal basis on which that they have brought a suit against a company. And a lot of it is based on the Securities and Exchange Act. Speaking of old things that kind of hold up, you're looking at, I think 1933 or 34. We want America is a land of financial investment or financial opportunity in a lot of different ways. That's part of our DNA. And, I think we've kind of shown the world how you can do a bunch of initial wildcat, innovation that goes horribly sideways and get it back under control and go, all right, okay, here are the rules, which had to include a lot of things like, a lot of public works projects and Social Security and other things, because, we hit this modern economy and we could get really rich really quick and then, starve. It was a real bummer. So we put regulations in line there. And, we've had the same problem for for years or so. We don't want to kill the innovation off just because there's risk, because this is America. If you want less of that, go to France, where you can do some things, but the really risky stuff is going to get, controlled by the state a lot more. We don't want the innovation to go away, but we don't want the rule of law to go away either. So the reason we haven't shut it down is that, the people that are doing things that are egregious, we are prosecuting them under some really basic tenets of the Securities and Exchange Act, which is like, did you put out first of all, did you register? Are you a security? Did you register with us? Because you have to do that if you're going to sell securities. And if you did you put out a prospectus? And did you talk about what risk? And were you honest about that risk? And then did you update your people on a regular basis? And that's what people are getting sued for. They're not, right now, that's how they're being prosecuted. It's no different than 90 years ago. And,
right, the SEC hasn't taken on crypto yet.
Well,
they don't have an official regulatory role in crypto. I don't think. Do they? They can.
Well, here, there's a lot of question. Is this a commodity like gold, or is this or a currency? Like, because forex currencies can be, or is it a security? And there is, there are some people out there who are like, it's neither. Well, you kind of got to pick a lane here. Is this, we call it cryptocurrency. If it's currency, then it needs to be regulated CFTC. If it's like betting on a stock, then it's got to be sort of SEC. But the CFTC rules are pretty similar too. Are you going to come on the grid? Are you going to describe your activities? Are you lying about them? Yeah. And the other stuff, are you laundering money for heroin dealers? That's another thing, but that shit's that's illegal with $20 bills through a laundromat. So just because something's technical doesn't mean you want to necessarily get rid of it. You can do you can use the existing laws and just, prosecute. Of course, during the Trump years we have a bunch of laws that weren't getting prosecuted on anything. So there's room to move there. But here's the strategically important thing I see. The metric ton of offshore money that is getting closed off in the Seychelles, in Monaco, Liechtenstein, New York, Nevada, South Dakota. I mean, there's a whole second economy we don't talk about. And the United States is zoning in on it, and that money is squeezing out in lots of different directions. And we're not going to shut down the concept of real estate. We're not going to shut down the concept of currency exchanges probably, but if you're making your own brand new currency thingy, that might get outlawed at some point.
Yeah. I mean, certainly you're right about the innovation piece. I mean, there's no doubt that America is reluctant to interrupt any innovation. And that's been, it's hurt America. Look at what happened with Facebook. Look at what's, that has not been a good product for America. Crypto has not been a good product for America, I would argue. And I think it's going to, and it basically doesn't even come from America. It wasn't, it's not designed to do anything other than replace the US dollar as a currency, as the main currency around the world. That's really the goal behind it. So, that is not a good thing for America, because America likes having the US dollar as a standard for that. So, there's consideration right now for, let's see if we can make it some sort of regulated asset. But in the meantime, you're seeing all these exchanges losing billions of dollars at a time, millions of dollars at a time. And where's that money going? I mean, where is that money? Where's that value going? Because the last exchanges that I know that went bankrupt did not happen on American soil. They happened probably the same place Tether exists, which is nowhere. And, then
North Korea.
Yeah. So where is this money going, and who's getting rich off it? And someone must be. I mean, last we heard about Mt. Gox, it was the FSB that got the money. Why did the FSB get the money? It's yeah.
It was Alex Vinnick is what the claim was.
Yeah, but really it was the
Alexander
FSB.
Vinnick. I don't know if it is ultimately the FSB.
I think it was ultimately the FSB. My research was it landed up in certain members of the FSB. I mean, so that'll give you a clue as to who might be running these things. And so it's not healthy to have all of this happen at the same time as we're having an attack on democracy with the installation of a Russian asset as a president in 2016, followed by this current war we're having indirectly, but still between Ukraine and Russia. You've got all these other things happening in the world. China's, thinking about attacking Taiwan. There's all these other, not healthy things for the world. To throw on top of that, this cryptocurrency thing, which is going to destabilize the currencies of the world, seems maybe unnecessary. I mean, if I was just picking of a list of things that we needed to deal with at one time, if you could delay one of those things, like cryptocurrency, by 10 years, I'd be okay with that. We'd be okay without cryptocurrency for a decade.
But I think the issue becomes one. I know we're talking a lot about here, like attack vectors or its usefulness for a different nation state or something like that. But I think that the issues that have grown and caused such problems in the cryptocurrency space, whether we're talking about hacks that give North Korea $600 million, or we're talking about hacks that kill protocols in a day and just give a random person $300 million or something. We're talking about corporate greed, and this space, as much as any other space, is now fully influenced by venture capitalists, hedge funds, angel investors, people who strictly are here. There's always been a bit of like, we're only here to make money. I think that has always been a big part of cryptocurrency. But when you have venture capitalists investing in stable coins that are promising 20% APR, it to me that feels like a really good sign of a systemic sickness of this is not just cryptocurrency. This is traditional trading firms and real venture capitalists with real money putting that real money into this, essentially a scam.
Yeah,
and it's because it promised high yield. It's simply because it promised high yield, and that's the problem. That's where we're at. That has to do with inflation. That has to do with all sorts of corporate greed. It has to do with all sorts of things, right? But I don't know. It's something we have to reckon with as a nation. I think America is quite greedy right now, I think.
Yes. We could also just ban it. I mean, someone should just figure out how to stop cryptocurrencies for the next while, and we'll be okay. We'll be fine. Like Facebook, could ban that.
I truly don't think you can. I don't think you can ban it. I don't think you can.
You can.
I don't think it's.
Doesn't Russia do that?
The genie is out of the bottle. It's like trying to ban gold. You can try to ban gold. people are still
Gold is
gonna have
actually
their gold
useful,
coins,
but
right?
crypto is not very useful. I mean, look at the collapse and like how many 9 times it's lost 70% of its value. No one's noticed except people in the marketplace. So it's gold
Even if
holds
you only
value.
think it's useful for criminals, I
Yeah.
think that a huge section of our economy works that way, right? I mean, that is the black market is like a very real market in any economy. So even if it's simply criminals, which it isn't. I mean, there's normal people who are just speculating on it and having fun and doing their own thing, which is fine. But even if you think it's only criminals, that is essentially, whether we like it or not, that is a use case, and they're going to continue to use it. We shut
They
down
could
the
use
Silk
PayPal.
Road
They could use
however
anything else they
many
used to
years
use.
ago.
I mean, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but PayPal had the same problems when it started out, and PayPal was essentially used by criminals. It's still used by criminals today, and lots of money laundering happens. We don't need another thing. There's all sorts of ways.
Yeah, I mean, we have casinos. At least they have like fun bands that show up in them, and craps is fun.
Yeah,
but but we don't necessarily need
I would
to
say in a
tolerate.
Sorry, go ahead.
We do not need as a society to have every possible way for child traffickers to swap cash with methamphetamine dealers. We don't need that necessarily.
No, and I'm not suggesting that there's a ton of. I'm not saying it's necessary most of the time, I guess. And I guess my point being that, for instance, a great thing that we probably largely don't need at all is heroin. But are you going to get rid of all the heroin in America? And the answer is like, whether heroin is useful or not, which it pretty much isn't. We can talk about the use cases of like fentanyl in pain medication or something. Like maybe there's some usefulness there, maybe, but like heroin itself is not very useful. It's still going to exist in America in 100 years. I can almost guarantee it. So as much as you don't like it, that doesn't mean that it's not going to just, you can't just make it go away. You can't just make these laws go away.
It's not the best example because heroin is actually, fentanyl particularly, is a Chinese export designed to probably hurt the American economy as well, but like the opium wars. But and therefore, like in the same way, like it's not necessary and should be banned. It shouldn't be legal. Cryptocurrency should not be around, so people can use that to influence the economy. I mean, just to argue about
I fully agree on the I don't think heroin is useful in any way, shape, or form. But again, whether or not it's legal in America, people are going to do heroin. Right. And so I think this is a similar thing where people are going to be able to access, like they can access the dark web. You can just download a Tor browser. You can type in an onion address and go on the dark web. Anyone can do it. Like you can't really stop that as much as you want to. Additionally, like the government,
you think cryptocurrencies would exist if they were but cryptocurrencies would exist if it wasn't available in the United States? I think it's the only reason that it exists is because you can basically convert it to US dollars, which is the currency that people respect around the world the most. I mean, if it was other currencies, no one's rushing to get into the ruble right now. So it's really the US dollar that gives us legitimacy. So if you didn't have it legal in the United States as legal tender or anything like that, then I don't know if anyone else will be rushing into it, but that's just me.
Yeah, and the U.S. Treasury at any time can stop any organization from having access to the U.S. dollar. That's what a sanction is. So actually, this thing can be sanctioned tomorrow afternoon. The whole thing shut down by the U.S. Treasury tomorrow.
It wouldn't be a bad idea.
It might be.
So things like stable coins could, but you can't really sanction Bitcoin as a whole. And the reason is that it runs on a host of different nodes throughout the world. So it will continue despite the fact that even if you say like any US citizen caught with Bitcoin will go to jail or whatever the law would be. Even if you made that kind of a law, the Bitcoin network would continue to run. And there are ways that people could acquire Bitcoin without the government ever finding out that you have Bitcoin.
Right now, it's in that middle
ground.
ground.
There are ways that you could do that.
Right now, it's in the middle ground of maybe we'll regulate it, maybe we won't. We're still thinking about it. We're just testing it. I'm just, I'm in favor of them just not regulating it. And we got to go because look at the time. Cass, PNC, thanks for being here tonight. It's been a good conversation. I have no idea what they're going to do with this. Yeah, it's great to have you here. And by the way, people should to find you. Where can they find you and where can they find your podcast? what you specifically
I'm on
address.
Twitter,
Yeah.
Cas Pianci, and our podcast is called Crypto Critics Corner. We're on, obviously, any of your podcast platforms or YouTube, and you can find us there. So yeah,
there's a lot of
thank you.
podcasts that are very pro Bitcoin. Probably like 99% of podcasts about Bitcoin are positive. You guys are actually take a critical look at it, and it's great and refreshing to hear that on the show. So everyone should check out the Crypto Critics Corner. And Eric Garland, a futurist.
Yes.
Futurist. I keep forgetting to tell people about your books. Can people still get Future Inc. and those incredible books that you wrote?
Yeah, apparently been reacquired, and we're going to be doing another printing of them. But Future Inc., how businesses can anticipate and profit from what's next, and its satirical counterpart, how to predict the future and win.
Sarah Garland is very
coming out
talented.
soon
That
again.
it took me this long. We've been doing this for a while to realize that he actually wrote these books because he's so humble. He won't even mention them himself. So
No, it's because everyone reads my tweets and they think that I can't. I get 2 sentences in and I have to hit the all caps and swear, which is true. But back in the day, I actually used to write paragraphs for publishing houses. So you grow.
Future Inc. by Eric Garland. Buy it today. He might have predicted crypto many years ago. Also, the podcast that Eric, you can find him on, is Game Theory Today. And this is Narrative Live, and I'm Zev Shalev. Thank you for watching tonight. Narrative.org is the website, but you can join our Patreon program at patreon.com/narrative. And we want to thank all our patrons for making tonight's show possible. We really can't do this without you guys. And that is tonight's Narrative Live. We'll see you all again tomorrow, because tomorrow is the after show. It's going to be fun. Rachel's back. We'll hear all about Arizona. That's tomorrow night on the after show. Have a good night, everybody. Narrative is made possible by viewers like you. Join today and support truly independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative. That's patreon.com/narrative.